Part 86. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 860. In addition to being shocked, everyone burst into laughter. It was an eye-opener for a guy who depended on eating soft food to be able to say such shameless words in public. At this moment, Lu Feng is like a clown, and he has already attracted the attention of 70 to 80% of the people. They stared at the person in the center of the field with drunken eyes, like a funny performance after drinking. Mi is also a person who wants to be embarrassed. Lu Feng did such a thing on such a high-end occasion, so many people stared at her, and her pretty face was so hot, she simply didn't want to be a person in the world. On the contrary, Lu Feng looked at everyone's eyes without caring at all, and said, "What are you laughing at? It's so funny. Let me tell you, I thought I was poor at the time, but now my company is worth tens of billions of dollars, and there is no end to it. Money, don't look at your personal appearance, I really don't necessarily have the money." The few people on the table not far away were laughing so hard that they were almost breathless. They were not only soft fans, but also upstarts. Among the classes in the United States, they looked down on upstarts the most. "Wow! Wow!" A white man in his 40s raised his glass towards Lu Feng and said, "Your road to becoming rich is really enviable. You are worth tens of billions. Listening to your accent, it doesn't look like that. New Yorkers, what are you doing here? Seeing a big city. Ha 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 ha." There was another burst of laughter at the scene. Mi couldn't stay any longer. She turned her head and walked away. She felt that Lu Feng had lost all her face in her whole life at this moment. No. Lu Feng looked at the man who was talking to him and asked, "What's your name?" "President of Bear Stearns Investments, Jenny." He raised the wine in his hand towards Lu Feng, looking respectful, but everyone present knew that he was just playing a monkey after drinking. "Bear Stearns," Lu Feng raised his brows. "The investment president of this old Wall Street investment company is not something ordinary people can be, and the other party's status on Wall Street is not low. Haven't you heard of it?" Jenny teased a bit. "We're just a small business. It's normal that we haven't heard of it. I can't think of a big entrepreneur like you." As soon as this remark appeared, there was a burst of laughter, and even the people who were busy at the card table on the second floor came out. Several young women stood in front of the fence and looked downstairs, holding a glass of red wine in their hands, with smiles on their faces. Lu Feng was not annoyed by his sarcasm, and said, "Of course Bear Stearns knows it. It was born in the First World War, and it was established 70 years ago this year, but the scale of its global investment is obviously not as good as that of Goldman Sachs, Morgan, or even the United States. Lin's investment is not as good. To be honest, I am also looking for investment, but if Bear Stearns wants to invest in me, I still don't want your investment." There was booze at the scene, and everyone turned their attention to Jenny, but they still looked down on you. Jenny was not annoyed. He took a sip of wine slowly. Sitting opposite him was the senior president of Merrill Lynch Investments, who looked in his 50s, and said, "Jenny, people look down on you, why don't I try it out?" "Try." The people at this table suddenly became excited and encouraged the man to make fun of him. "Hi. Brother, I don't know if I'm qualified. Let me introduce myself. I'm the senior president of Merrill Lynch. Chris, I heard you mentioned Merrill just now. I would like to express my honor to be shortlisted for your selection." Chris stood up ostentatiously and raised his hands around him. He even choked and wiped his tears with his hands. It was unspeakably funny, which made everyone laugh, and some even whistled, as if the banquet was only now reaching its climax. The man who had stopped Lu Feng at the moment was also standing aside to watch the excitement. The atmosphere at the scene was indescribably hot. "Merrill Lynch? Today's dinner is hosted by you. No matter what, I have to give you face," Lu Feng said to Chris. "Why don't you invest billions to play first?" Several billions. How dare you say that? Chris laughed and sat down and said, we are still too poor. There is no way to compare with a rich man like you, let alone a rich man with many women behind him. The scene was booed and the laughter was so harsh. Don't talk about me at this moment, even Su Yurong couldn't hold back. Seeing Lu Feng standing there with an indifferent expression, he didn't know what he was doing with such a person. Lu Feng chuckled and said, to tell the truth, I really don't care about money, it's just a chance for everyone present, as long as I call any of those girlfriends, don't talk about money, even a strategic weapon, you can also get it. The people present couldn't help laughing, and Jenny said to Chris, let's study it together and invest together, or else someone will get some weapons, and our country will be finished. As soon as he said this, he almost made Chris lie under the table with a smile. The person in charge at the scene looked at the time, it was almost midnight, and it was almost time to laugh. Although he didn't know what Lu Feng came from, it didn't matter. Except for the capital present, in their eyes, the others were all monkey, even if Lu Feng is really as rich as he said, he is just a monkey with money. Okay, thank you very much for your appreciation today. The dinner is over. If you want to stay here to rest, you can tell the service staff that there are enough rooms here. On behalf of the Merrill Lynch Group again, thank you for taking your precious time to come and participate. The man said to the crowd. I haven't finished speaking yet. Lu Feng looked at him and said. The man turned to look at Lu Feng and said, Sir, next time you come earlier, we can pay to invite you to perform on the show, and leave your contact information for a while. Another burst of laughter. Be sure to let him come, I am willing to pay an extra $1,000. I add 500. Chris and Jenny stood up and walked to the room. They were talking and laughing, and they seemed to be in a good mood. This person is really interesting, he shows the face of the nouveau riche incisively and vividly. It's not necessarily an act. I heard just now that this person was not invited. It should have been brought over by someone else. They don't care about such a person at all, they just met such an interesting thing. The crowd dispersed, and a waiter walked towards Lu Feng with several $1,000s on his plate, and said to Lu Feng, Sir, this is your tip, please leave your contact information, and you will be invited to the next banquet. Lu Feng looked at the thousands of dollars, picked it up with a sneer, raised it, turned around and left. After leaving the manor, Su Yurong sat in the car without saying a word. It could be seen that she was very unhappy and said coldly, drive. It's a bit late this time, don't be late for other banquets, tell me one day in advance. Lu Feng said. What are you talking about? Are you embarrassed? Su Yurong turned his face to look at Lu Feng and said, there are so many ways to gain a position, why did you choose this? If I knew this was what you said, I would not, I should promise you. Elmi even cried aggrieved. If this spread, she would be a joke in the international circle. In a state like this tonight, what do you want me to do? Now I don't care what I can do, I just need to come out. Who knows me from the capital tycoons on Wall Street? Who is it for me? What am I? Lu Feng asked. Su Yurong in a deep voice said, even if I'm a clown, there are people seeing me now. Let's talk about it later, when you are in a tiny position, what is dignity? You're not bad for that meal. If you can't do it, don't do it. Jiafeng Electronics is about to go bankrupt. You came out of a small city and expanded wildly for so many years, and you still have to fight with your face. Su Yurong lowered his head. The car window, lit a cigarette, obviously she was very angry tonight. Of course I don't miss that one bite of food, but I miss that one breath, Lu Feng said a little excitedly, I don't care what I do now, but I want to tell the world in many years that we can do it. They can do it, I can do it too, today I am a monkey, they laugh, one day they will not laugh, you remember, one day. Why are you so excited? Su Yurong's voice raised a few decibels and said, why don't you have enough money now? You are already rich, why do you do this? Am I talking about money? I want to care about money. I have earned enough money for 8 lifetimes now. This is the difference between the two of us. I can understand that you pursue money, but you can't say that I only pursue money. I took the money to do things, Lu Feng said emotionally. The thing I did today is for 20 years later, I will choke this group of people by the neck, and tell them that they are sloppy. I don't understand what you're talking about. Su Yorong took a puff of cigarette and said, next time, don't take me with you for such a shameful thing. Lu Feng knew that with someone like Su Yorong, it was impossible to make sense. There was a fundamental difference between the two, so no one spoke at all. The car stopped at the entrance of the hotel. Su Yorong originally thought about the jet lag and couldn't sleep at night, so she called Lu Feng to her room, but now she's not in that mood anymore. Lu Feng got out of the car and waved his hand to indicate that she could leave. At the door of the hotel, Feng Xiao stood there and sighed. Brother Feng was always handsome in his heart, but after coming to Wall Street, his abilities seemed to be limited. Go upstairs for a meeting, Lu Feng greeted Wang Yuan with a few words of humanity. Wait a minute, there should be a conclusion to my matter, right? Elmi ran over and asked. It's the same sentence, Ruxin Lab. This is the root of the solution. If you don't agree to this matter, then there is no need to talk about everything. Lu Feng looked at her and said. Then why are you taking me to the dinner party? At this moment, Elmi felt that she was the most aggrieved woman in the world. How could she treat such a beautiful woman like this? I'll take you there with you. Are you qualified to talk to me now? Lu Feng stared at her, turned his head and walked upstairs. Elmi was extremely aggrieved. She squatted at the door of the hotel and cried, but no one looked at her at all. Relying on her appearance to be cared for and cherished, she was beaten to pieces by Lu Feng at this moment. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 861. In the more than 20 years of Elmi's life, Lu Feng finally understood the first truth that he felt personally. In business competition, the weight of a face is about the same as a piece of paper. There are many good-looking people in this world, but a woman who can become a high-ranking person is by no means a simple face. In the room, Lu Feng looked at Wang Yuan, he and the three of them. He was a little worried at the moment and said, the whole situation is not good for us. You are all talents of the company. I believe how important this Wall Street financing is to the company. Lu Yulong has always felt that he knows the company very well, and when he was training in the Talent Reserve Center, the teacher there told him that what level of vision determines where you stand, so Lu Yulong has always regarded himself as the president of the whole GFN. I think the company is developing smoothly, and it can go on without financing. Now we don't seem to be very popular. Wang Yuan he thought for a while and said, and our Talent Reserve Center has been set up here, which is very large. One step. Njia looked at the two people beside her and said, Mr. Lu, you can say it. I don't think we can't do it because of difficulties. On the contrary, it is because of difficulties that we are on the right track. If they want to laugh, they will laugh. When we succeed, they won't be able to laugh. Lu Yulong Shen sound. Three people, faced with three difficult choices, Lu Feng sighed and lit a chimney. The matter has come to this point, there is no way to go. The company chooses capital, and it must make profits for the capital, and capital must see in return. This time is indeed difficult, but it is not that difficult. Perhaps this experience will be a special experience for the three of you young people. I was thinking tonight, forget it, the most important thing now is to let the capital of Wall Street see me, so I need a powerful woman. Lu Feng said to the three of them, tomorrow is the most important thing. That is, find a woman with money and energy, you can help to screen, and the most important thing is, after I go to hook up, other men won't hit me, understand? When the three heard this, they looked at each other and were speechless. How could Lu Feng say that he was looking for a lover in such a high-end international affairs? It's getting late, you rest early, if you really can't, just communicate with the people from Sun Hong Kai, Lu Feng ordered. The next day, when the sun rose as usual, it was a brand new day. Over the past 100 years, countless capitals have come and gone on Wall Street, and all the astonishing things have happened. What happened to Lu Feng last night has long been submerged into the night. Eisen was not eligible to attend Meryl's dinner party, but it didn't prevent him from hearing some things. There were only those people on the street, that's all. After listening to Eisen, he laughed and sent an email to Shi Watanabe, then got up and went to Lambert's office. Lambert just came, and the two met at the door of the office. Is something wrong? Lambert asked Eisen. Eisen recounted what happened last night. The smile on Lambert's face was quite playful. He put a little pressure on him, and he became what he is now. When he really started to take action on the market of GFN electronics, he would not be able to bear it at all. Not live. His willpower is very weak, and now he's like a headless fly, Eisen said with a smile. Don't worry, he doesn't need to report to me for the time being. I'm going out for a vacation these 2 days. Lambert opened the office door and said. Eisen also felt that it was unnecessary. Such a person can't make any big waves at all, just wait for his willpower to be crushed, and then invest in shares at a low price. In the morning, Wang Yu and he and the three checked a lot of information and news media, and finally had no choice but to find someone from Sun Hong Kai. Only then did Jenkin know what Lu Feng had done. After listening to it, he almost died of anger. He had disgraced several companies. Don't tell your dad about this, he can't stand this excitement. Zhenkun looked at Feng Xiao and said earnestly, Xiao, Lu Feng will do some unreasonable things in the future. You are mixed up, and you are now in a different identity, representing the company. Understood. Feng Xiao agreed perfunctorily. Why is he looking for a powerful woman? Zhenkun took a deep breath. He originally wanted to introduce several executives from investment companies to pull Lu Feng out of the quagmire, but he didn't expect him to start messing around. You tell Lu Feng that he has done this. So far, we will help him contact a few investors and let him lower the valuation. Maybe we can negotiate, Jenkins said earnestly. He wants to continue to mess around, Sun Hong Kai will no longer care about him. Wang Yuan he had no choice but to make a phone call to Lu Feng's room. Lu Feng's answer was very straightforward. Don't listen to his bullshit. The execution is right. President Lu still insists. Okay, according to her request, I'll ask someone to sort out a list in a while, but I tell you, there are some people in this list that Lu Feng would not dare to contact. Zhenkun looked annoyed, stood up and left. During lunchtime, a list was placed in front of Lu Feng. It was full of very influential women, and one of them had a special name that caught Lu Feng's eyes. Kelly. Director of the Intelligence Bureau Center, 32 years old this year, single. After reading all of them, Lu Feng locked onto this woman. Her special identity was easier to break. According to the information, she basically goes to a cafe for coffee every afternoon and meets people from other countries in the cafe. Lu Feng is very familiar with them. Very good, it's her, Lu Feng said in a deep voice, just go over after dinner and wait. What is this person doing? Wang Yuan he instinctively felt something was wrong. Intelligence Bureau, agencies that collect intelligence from various countries in the world, as long as we can gain their trust, we can make any request in a short period of time. After the meeting yesterday, Lu Feng received a call from the team dispatched to Europe. Particularly large financial institutions. However, during the negotiation, the other party believed that the valuation of GFN Electronics was too high and the investment value was low, and it was still under negotiation. Lu Feng already knew at this moment that he had to make some noise on Wall Street, otherwise the negotiations in the City of London would not be so smooth. GFN Electronics is highly valued, of course Lu Feng knows that, but at some point, some investment institutions will not start from a business perspective, and then swallow the bitter fruit that is hard to swallow. International business must not only consider business, but also consider international business. Situation. Before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng brought 4 people to the cafe. Feng Xiao insisted on following him. Lu Feng didn't know for a while whether he was coming by himself or whether Jenkins sent over to see who he would meet. Brother Feng, who are we looking for? Feng Xiao sat next to him and took a sip of coffee and said, Uncle Kun said that he has been busy with this matter all the time, and the investment here is like this: don't be in a hurry, grind it slowly, consume slowly. I can't wait. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he glanced around. Half an hour later, a white woman came in, dressed in a foreign style, with big sunglasses stuck on her face, followed by 2 young people, found a place and sat down. Lu Feng stared over there. It was her, Kelly. Don't move yet, I'll go over and ask. Lu Feng stood up and walked over there. Kelly was very vigilant. As soon as Lu Feng walked this way, she stopped talking and stared at Lu Feng and said, Sir, what are you doing? We don't want to be disturbed, thank you. I'm sorry, are you Kellis? Lu Feng bent down slightly and asked softly, Is that Kellis from the CIA? The other party was obviously stunned for a moment, feeling that the young man in front of him seemed to be coming at him. Yes, you have something to do with me. She took off her sunglasses and looked at Lu Feng with interest. Lu Feng glanced at the 2 young men, and hesitated before saying anything. Kelly motioned to them. After the 2 left, Lu Feng hurriedly sat down. I'll introduce myself first. I'm from Huaxia. I'm a business executive. I'm very rich, but I don't feel comfortable in China, so I want to get in touch with you. Lu Feng said bluntly, I can help you. Do things in exchange for some resources in the United States. Kelly has been in contact with many people, she has never seen such a direct, and said, You were persecuted. I am rich, I am a capitalist, and of course I have been persecuted. Only here can I enjoy the freedom of capital. I am very longing for the United States, my country. You don't know, you know how to help the poor and how to achieve equality. The money I can earn can't be lost like this, Lu Feng said eagerly. Kelly is not a fool either. She knows a little about the domestic situation. She won't forcefully beat the local tyrants as Lu Feng said. Instead, she is now attracting investment. Can't your assets be protected? Kelly stared at Lu Feng for dozens of seconds and said, I don't believe it. Let me tell you the truth, my assets are not very white, you can check it a little to know how I got my home, and now I ran out of the house under the name of overseas financing. As long as you help me transfer my assets, I can help you with things. Lu Feng looked extra loyal and said, I still know a lot of leaders, you can check it out, the one who has the best relationship with me is Huang Youwei, and there are many inconvenient relationships, I can even go up. Call. Kelly began to take it seriously, because Lu Feng was very honest, and he felt that he was really in a hurry. After confirming who he was, he immediately revealed everything. If what you said is true, then don't be afraid, we will protect you, Kelly said with a smile on her face. What's your name? Jiafeng Electronics Group. Lu Feng, if you're worried, you can go check it out, but I hope it's as soon as possible. Lu Feng said urgently, I'm even willing to donate half of my assets, whether it's to the school or to welfare agencies are fine. Wow! You are so good. I hope we can cooperate, Mr. Lu. Kelly's eyes lit up. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 862. The two people who were going to contact Kelly just now looked a little bored sitting next to them. They looked at Lu Feng curiously, wondering what this person came from. In more than an hour, Lu Feng explained his details clearly, because he knew that if he didn't say it, the other party could check it out. Lu Feng even sold Feng Xiao, who was sitting on the side, and told Kelly that he could use Sun Hongkai to do something in Hong Kong. Kelly has worked in the Intelligence Bureau for many years, and has only been the director for 2 years. She has come into contact with many people, but she is the first to be as happy as Lu Feng. Lu Feng almost slept with someone. Sun told her. I have already explained everything, I hope you will consider me well. I am really urgent now, Lu Feng said to Kelly, because I came here to seek investment, and now the investment is not ideal, at least not with any company. Contact, if it goes on like this, I have to go back, there is no reason to stay here. Kelly frowned slightly and said, just stay here, we can guarantee the safety of your life. Why don't you understand? I don't just want the safety of my life, I want the safety of my property. If the country thinks something is wrong with me, I may freeze my property, but as long as I make a little movement here, and then go back, I can come again next time. It can take a while, Lu Feng said to her, do you understand this time? Is that so? Kelly nodded thoughtfully and said, then what valuable things can you bring back when you go back? Seeing her still suspicious, Lu Feng said helplessly, the most straightforward thing is, I can give you half of my property. As long as everything is normal here, the country will not suspect me. I will remove the danger for the time being, you guys. I can give you whatever you need, and my future is in your hands. Kelly nodded slightly. Although she didn't know whether what Lu Feng said was true or not, at least what he said was sincere. Then what do you need now? Kelly asked. Need a woman. No problem, I'll arrange it for you later. What else? We can provide food, clothing, housing, and transportation, as well as security services. Kelly agreed without hesitation. It seemed that Lu Feng's request was normal. I don't need ordinary women, I need some women with status. In this way, my abnormal behavior here can be explained clearly. Lu Feng asked her seriously, can you arrange it? Kelly looked at Lu Feng. Lu Feng's appearance was not considered top-notch handsome, but his temperament, which had been in the position of giving orders for a long time, was more charming than handsome. Feeling the heat in her eyes, Lu Feng raised his eyebrows slightly and said, huh. Kelly reached out and turned off the recorder on the table and said, I'll help you find a few people, but you do have an indescribable charm, an oriental man. I don't seem to have felt it before, but unfortunately I can't now. Do something. Are you married? Lu Feng asked. Kelly shook her head and said, no, it's just that I need the support of my boss now. Then I understand, you came to this position at a young age. Lu Feng looked at her and said, your boss must be of great help to you. Leave your contact information and you can leave. Kelly looked at Lu Feng with a bit of nostalgia in her eyes. After Lu Feng left his hotel room number and phone number, he took Wang Yuanhe and a few people downstairs. In the car, Feng Xiao asked Lu Feng, Brother Feng, how is it? Lu Feng patted his chest confidently and said, Brother Feng, is there something you can't figure out? She will help us, don't worry. And Jia is a little simple. She doesn't understand why she can reach a cooperation after sitting there chatting for a while. Lu Feng is simply magical in her heart. Mr. Lu, why does she want to help us? And Jia said with a learning attitude, is there any way of speaking? Or any tricks? Lu Feng looked at her innocent eyes, and said, of course you have skills, but it's just more physical, so I won't leave it to you, the driver will drive. Kelly briefly talked to the two of them, and then hurried back. She needed to confirm whether what Lu Feng said was true. If they were true, then such a big private entrepreneur has thousands of domestic. The inextricable relationship will bring unexpected surprises to them. This will also be the brightest stroke of Kelly's current career. Lu Feng's affairs are very easy to investigate. There is a lot of rumors about him within a certain range. The most important proof here is how he got his money. P.S. Shaking Eagle, Sexy Offline Westwind Online Code Word, welcome to Urge More Online. At 7 o'clock in the evening, all Lu Feng's documents had been placed on a desk. There were 6 or 7 folders. 2 men in military uniforms walked in and said, "Major Kelly, the person's information has been sorted out, and it is indeed possible that his property has been frozen." "What is possible?" Kelly asked, leaning back in the chair. "I want certainty." "The time is too short. We can only confirm that all his initial assets were illegally obtained. He participated in illegal fundraising in the early years, and later stole a lot of land, and used the land as a leverage to borrow money from banks. Today, at the same time, this man he is arrogant and domineering, has a very bad reputation, and offends many people. We think he may have heard some rumors and someone wants to mess with him," the man analyzed. "Is everything he said in the recorder true?" Kelly asked. "The current information shows that there is not a single lie. The person named Huan Yowei has now been promoted and has a very close relationship with him, and someone has provided information. He can go so far without any problems because there are still people above." Kelly showed a smile on her face, which is really a gratifying thing, and said, "Continue to dig out the information of this person, control this person, and let him stay in China is much stronger than here. After all, entrepreneurs have different scopes of activities and people they come into contact with. Find a few women with a higher status on Wall Street, and arrange a special agent for me at the same time. I want a woman who is beautiful and has a good figure," Kelly ordered. When night fell, Jenkin told the board of directors of Sun Hung Kai about the matter here. The board of directors was very dissatisfied with Lu Feng's fooling around. Originally, Jenkin was arranged to go there in order to rely on Sun Hung Kai's relationship to find more investment companies. It doesn't matter if the valuation is suppressed, as long as he can get this global passport. In the private room on the 8th floor of the hotel, the food has already been served. Zhenkun sat there with an ugly face, and said, "I have communicated with the board of directors about this matter. As a shareholder, we do not understand it very much. Being able to help you the most in this matter, but now it has become like this. Those investors just look at you like this, so they can continue to lower the price. Press it, they will just talk about the price of cabbage to buy gold. How can there be such a cheap thing?" Lu Feng took a bite of the vegetable and said casually, "Let me tell you, if you have the face of Sun Hung Kai, the other party still has some scruples, or the next step will be to suppress your business and the market." The latest resolution of the board of directors, all the staff of Sun Hung Kai withdrew. This financing failed, and ultimately caused the road to globalization to be blocked. "You have to take all the responsibilities," Zhenkun shouted to Lu Feng. The atmosphere in the private room was extremely cold. Wang Yuan he and the others did not dare to move when they sat there. For some unknown reason, a few good people suddenly turned their faces. "Walk slowly, don't send it. I can be responsible, and I don't want to say anything else," Lu Feng said casually. "Uncle Kun, this matter needs to be taken slowly. Besides, Brother Feng is also working very hard, and has been trying to find a way for the past 2 days. Xiao, don't say it anymore. This was not decided by me, it was decided by the board of directors. The air ticket has been booked. After the meal, we will all leave. President Lu, according to the financing agreement signed at the beginning, because you are responsible for all the irreversible losses you caused unilaterally." Zhenkun stood up and said, "I'm not too hungry, you guys eat slowly." Zhenkun stood up and walked away. The others all stood up and left with a hoot. Feng Xiao looked at the two of them, very embarrassed, got up and chased after them, and said to Zhenkun, "Uncle Kun, there's no need to say something so ugly, everyone is so familiar, Brother Feng and I are still brothers." "What brother?" Let me tell you, if Jiafeng fails to go international, he is not a brother, but a defendant, you know, Jenkins said solemnly. Xiao, when will you be able to become a little entrepreneurial? Feng Xiao stood there in a daze. He couldn't figure out why these people changed their faces so quickly. It seemed that they could switch seamlessly between laughter and anger. Lu Feng looked at Wang Yuanhe and said, "Eat." The night in the United States and the early morning in Fuzhou, Watanabe was in a good mood these 2 days. He entered the office with a smile on his face. He was going to have a morning meeting in a while. He first turned on the computer and checked his emails. Happening. When I opened the mailbox, the first thing I saw was the email from Eisen. After reading it, Watanabe almost laughed. It was an international joke that Lu Feng would lose such a person at such a high-end banquet. From this point of view, Lu Feng's Wall Street financing road has basically ended, and then it will be his turn to make a big surprise. Watanabe felt a breath of turbid breath coming out of his chest, and the whole person was overjoyed. This arrogant young man is still too young, thinking that the domestic practice can be changed to international play. Watanabe glanced at the time. Lu Feng should not have slept yet. He first called Eisen's assistant and asked for the phone number of Lu Feng's room. While talking on the phone, Watanabe muttered, "Don't want to sleep tonight." After the call was connected, Watanabe leaned back on the chair and said in English, "Is it Lu Feng?" "It's me, Watanabe. If you don't understand English, you can find an interpreter." "Understood. Why are you calling again?" "Do you need to scold me?" Lu Feng was also depressed, and said angrily, "Where did I offend you? Didn't you agree to sell Ruxin Lab to me? It's all over." "No. I just think it's enough to have us in Asia, and everyone else just needs to live under our shelter," Watanabe said arrogantly. "So that's how it is, I see. I didn't have any grudge against you at first, but now I'm fine," Lu Feng said fiercely. "I can't beat you, my surname is yours. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 863. Ha 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 ha. Watanabe laughed very disdainfully. These threats from Lu Feng sounded more funny than jokes to him. As long as Wall Street intends to suppress Jiafeng Electronics, then once Wall Street capital intervenes, according to the past practice, the founders will 100% will be squeezed out. In Watanabe's eyes, Lu Feng is like a dying insect. "Very good, you are still very arrogant. I hope that in a few months, you can still have the current ambition. By the way, let me tell you that the international community is not you in the country. You can run wild with a little relationship, not what you think. It's as simple as that. I can only pray for you now, and live well." Watanabe was inexplicably comfortable, leaning back on the chair and said, "It's good to be a clown at a high-end banquet. Don't offend people, you are in their eyes. It's not even an ant, how am I to you? That's all." Watanabe didn't give Lu Feng a chance to speak at all, and just hung up the phone. Listening to the busy tone on the phone, Lu Feng sneered disdainfully. A nation is made up of people. When a nation shows the attitude of bullying the weak and fearing the hard, it is the same for most of the people here. Lu Feng was in no mood to pay attention to him. There were still a lot of things going on here. Su Yurong's anger was almost gone. Tomorrow night is JP Morgan Chase's dinner party, so she still called Lu Feng. "Hey, tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, there will be a lot of people at JP Morgan Chase's dinner party. I just want you to do a little bit. Can you not be as embarrassing as that day?" Su Yurong asked. "Don't worry, what are you talking about? I'll tell you. How can I get you back tomorrow night?" Lu Feng said solemnly. "Oh, don't do it, I just hope you don't continue to be ashamed." Su Yurong sighed and said, "You really don't have a plan to go to Mr. Feng? They have so many people here, they can't eat for nothing." "Bar. They're leaving tomorrow." After a fight tonight, I can only sigh that capital is ruthless. As soon as they saw that I had annoyed Wall Street and was about to be wiped out, they immediately turned their faces and didn't recognize anyone. Lu Feng sighed, we want to take all the cheap, and we don't want to take any risk. Okay, let's not talk about this. Su Yurong was still a little happy when he heard that GFN Electronics was about to end. Now that he is being led by himself, Lu Feng really lost his power. Wasn't she toyed with her palms? Then you can come to me tonight. Ah, Lu Feng was stunned and said, why did you go to your place? What do you think? I've come all the way to help you, why don't you give something in return? Su Yurong said angrily. Didn't I agree at the beginning, after the financing is successful, I'll give you a little money, it's not for nothing. Lu Feng said to the phone, I took a shower and rested. It's a very tired day. Overnight, it's a bonus, isn't it? Do you want to go tomorrow? Su Yurong threatened. You're just trying to pinch me now, aren't you playing with me? Lu Feng said angrily. Yeah, can't you play with me? Lazy, wash up and come here, I'll wait for you. Su Yurong hung up the phone. Not to mention the anger in Lu Feng's heart, although they said that they were mutually beneficial, but being held by her like this made him feel really uncomfortable. Damn it, it's like buying a humming business. Lu Feng scolded, thinking to himself, it won't kill you. Just as he was about to go out, the phone rang again. He came back from the door and picked up the phone. I'm Lu Feng, who is that? Hello, Mr. Lu, I'm Kelly's assistant. I'm very happy that you can participate in this great cause. You have been identified as a friendly partner by us. We will provide you with some convenience. Time. Let's talk. A woman's voice was on the other end of the phone. Really? That's great, you guys are really efficient at doing things, of course you can now, it's in the restaurant downstairs of the hotel, how about it? Lu Feng said excitedly. Okay, give me the address. After Lu Feng told the other party the address, she called Su Yurong again and told her that she couldn't go. Su Yurong didn't believe it at all and insisted on coming over to see. 10 minutes later, in the private room of the restaurant downstairs, a black woman in her 40s walked in, followed by a white woman, tall, more than 1.7 meters tall, with a pair of high heels, looking even taller. Blonde wavy hair, a pair of tight shorts on the lower body, the back of a Western woman is already upturned, her body is slightly developed, and the rise is a tube top, the navel is leaking out, but the slender waist has a particularly powerful beauty. As soon as this woman walked in, not to mention Lu Feng, even Su Yurong stared at her. No matter her figure, dress, or appearance, she was definitely an eye-catching presence. Are you Mr. Lu? The black woman saw that Lu Feng's eyes were all behind her, and a smile appeared on her face inadvertently. Who could refuse such a stunner? Yes, I am. Hello, please take a seat. Lu Feng stood up and shook hands. Who is this? She looked at Su Yurong. This is my assistant, it doesn't matter. I still hope this lady goes out. The black woman stared at Su Yurong and said. Lu Feng turned his head and glanced at her. Su Yurong didn't have much, picked up his bag and strode out. The black woman sat down and introduced, this is Jennifer, she is still not interested in some Wall Street companies. More familiar. Hi, Jennifer raised her little hand and beckoned to Lu Feng. She looked like a simple little girl, but when Lu Feng came in, he smelled a special fragrance, which made him look at the woman in front of him. Always involuntarily raised goodwill. This kind of perfume Lu Feng heard from a few wealthy women in his previous life. It should be a special perfume made of musk. From this point of view, this woman is by no means simple. Hi, Lu Feng squinted at each other. If you said you needed it, we also contacted you. One of the congressman's daughters is willing to cooperate, and the other two are also interested. We need you to meet tomorrow, the black woman said to Lu Feng. We still hope that you can complete the affairs here as soon as possible, return to China as soon as possible, and we will also ensure your property and personal safety. Don't worry, I definitely will, as long as my assets are not seized, I can do anything, Lu Feng said firmly. Then what do you two have to talk about? The black woman looked at the two of them. How old are you? Do you have a boyfriend? Lu Feng looked at her with a smile. Jennifer said a little shyly, not yet, this is my first contact with an Oriental man. If there is anything I can help you with, even though I told me that I have a good understanding of some Wall Street companies. You're so good looking, it doesn't really matter if you understand it or not. Lu Feng lit a cigarette and said, where do you live? Why don't you go out for a drink? Seeing Lu Feng like this, the black woman sneered secretly in her heart. Aren't all men in the world the same? It's late, I have to go back, see you tomorrow. Let's do this for now, we'll see you tomorrow. The black woman stood up and walked outside. Lu Feng stood up and followed. Su Yorong was standing at the door of the restaurant, those eyes staring at Lu Feng were about to kill someone. Watching Jennifer get into the car and go away, Lu Feng then looked back, glanced at Su Yorong and said, what about it? As for what, Su Yorong pointed to the door of the hotel and said, look over there. Lu Feng looked over and found that Elmi was standing at the door and looked this way, as if she was looking. You're really busy, let's go. Su Yorong grabbed Lu Feng's hand and walked towards her hotel. Lu Feng was shrewdly pulled by her, and hurriedly said to Elmi, are you looking for me for something? My dad wants to talk to you about the cooperation between Ruxin Labs. You can talk about it. Elmi's face was a little tired. In the past 2 days, the father and daughter have been constantly pulling with the board of directors. There is a compromise here. I have something to do with me. Lu Feng struggled and said, if there is something serious, let it go. She has serious things, and I have bad things here. Su Yorong stopped, stared at Elmi and said boldly, it's so important, let's talk in bed. Huh? Elmi was dumbfounded. It doesn't seem to matter that much, what do you think? Lu Feng could only compromise, and followed Su Yorong to the hotel not far away. Under the night, there are bright lights. The light of the street lamps pierces the darkness of the night and drives them mercilessly, as if black and white are incompatible at all, and they seem to be venting some kind of dissatisfaction. Su Yorong is a woman who has experienced the world. Successful people are often very restrained, but only in Lu Feng's place, she can't restrain herself. The restlessness in her heart was neither desire nor love. To her, Lu Feng was a big mountain. If one day, she stepped on this mountain and planted the banner of victory, then she would be merciless. Leave, never come back. The next day, Morgan's dinner party was announced more than a month in advance, and all the people who should be invited have already sent invitations, but at the last Merrill Lynch investment dinner, Lu Feng really brought a lot of jokes. Inside the Bear Stearns office building, while watching the schedule tonight, Jenny, the investment president, suddenly remembered Lu Feng, picked up the phone and called the head of JP Morgan Chase. Hello, it's me, Bells Jenny, I'm looking forward to tonight's dinner. I must go, but I want you to invite someone. Okay, Jenny asked. What character? Let you open your mouth. It's the latecomer at the Merrill dinner a few days ago, remember? Ha 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 ha, he, of course, remember, he is our pistachio. I almost forgot, he will not receive an invitation. I will try to contact and see if I can find it. Fantastic, tonight is destined to be a great night. Ha 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 ha. Who said no? Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 864. For this group of the world's top billionaires, they are surrounded by decent people and follow a certain set of etiquette. They all want faces, and they are all decent people. When everyone is on the air, it is naturally boring, and Lu Feng, a shameless person, is like a monkey who broke into a high-end banquet. Of course, these people like it. In the morning, in Su Yorong's room, breakfast has been delivered. Lu Feng is eating breakfast. Su Yorong is squatting on the opposite chair, playing with her hair in one hand, and flipping through an English newspaper in the other. On. Do you understand, Lu Feng said while eating, it's really Zhu Beiji wearing glasses and pretending to be a scholar. Su Yorong put down the newspaper, stared at Lu Feng for a while, and asked, can you tell me why you know the English on it? As far as I know, the English majors around you read the newspaper. It's all exhausting. It's self-taught, Lu Feng fooled. You are hiding something from me. In the years we have known each other, I have always thought that you have a big secret. Su Yorong supported the table with her elbows and said, when will you tell me? Lu Feng glanced at her and wrote lightly, you have a big secret. I'm a very simple person. I just think it's always good to learn more, so I learned English. It's really going to the grave to burn English newspapers, even the ghosts think it's outrageous. Su Yorong didn't ask much, she knew that the other party didn't want to say anything, and she would only make fun of herself if she continued to ask. In the morning, Jenkin and his party checked out. Feng Xiao didn't want to go back, but he is the vice president of the group after all. Before leaving, he wanted to say goodbye to Lu Feng, but Lu Feng was not there at all, so he could only ask Wang Yuanhe to tell him. Wang Yuanhe and the three also wondered, what about Lu Feng Gren? This is an invitation sent by someone just now, inviting us to the Morgan dinner, and Jia Wai took out a beautifully made invitation and said, now Mr. Lu doesn't know where he is, what should I do? I only participated in the evening, it's still early. Lu Yulong looked at the time and said, wait a little longer. Lu Feng didn't come back until noon and chatted with Su Yorong a lot about future development. She is quite satisfied with the current development of United Capital, and her position in the business community of Hong Kong is steadily improving, so she doesn't have much ambition in the short term. Su Yorong didn't understand the pattern, and was even less interested in technology. She came out of that mountain village simply wanting to become a rich person. Lu Feng can understand her, but she will never understand Lu Feng. Lu Feng's hurricane capital in Hong Kong, Sun Hung Kai's secret holdings, and United Capital seem to have reached a delicate balance. When this balance is broken one day, Su Yorong can still live a leisurely and comfortable life like today. Maybe she had figured it out long ago, so she kept getting money from Lu Feng and put it into her pocket first. At noon, Lu Feng was eating in the restaurant. When he saw Wang Yuanhe and three people coming, he instructed, get dressed in the afternoon, get dressed, and go to the dinner party in the evening. Okay, Mr. Lu, they're all gone. Mr. Feng came to see you this morning, but you weren't here, so let us tell you that he also went back, Lu Yulong said. Got it, let's go and have dinner. Tonight is a big deal, Lu Feng said without any unnecessary emotions. One more thing, someone sent an invitation, does it conflict with the dinner tonight? And Jia Wai hurriedly thought of the invitation. Invitation, Lu Feng raised his head in surprise. He didn't know anyone on Wall Street, so who would send him an invitation? Asked, what invitation? Let me see. Leave it in my room, I'll get it, and Jia Wai said and trotted away. After a while, he brought over an invitation and handed it to Lu Feng. Lu Feng glanced at it, slapped his thigh and shouted, damn, it's a loss. Ah, and Jia Wai was shocked and asked hurriedly, where is the loss? Tonight we are going to this dinner. Lu Feng put the invitation aside and sighed. Isn't that right, Wang Yuan? He wondered, how could it be a loss? Ah. Lu Feng sighed and said, it's a loss of several hundred million, forget it, let's not talk about it, you all get ready. The three of them looked at each other. In the past 2 days, they felt that although President Lu was not a few years older than them, they always felt that President Lu said something that young people could not understand. Just after dinner, Jennifer arrived at the hotel. Compared with last night, Jennifer's clothes were more restrained today, but she was still eye-catching. "Hi," Jennifer greeted and sat down, stared at Lu Feng and said, "I can't believe that you have started such a big business from scratch at such a young age, which really surprises me." "It's just a small fight, what does your family do?" Lu Feng said politely. "People who work in real estate are ordinary people on Wall Street." Jennifer scratched her hair and said, "I have always had a good impression of young talents, not to mention you are so good looking." "Really? Ha ha ha, then I'm really honored." Lu Feng took a sip of water and said, "I still hope to help me at tonight's dinner. Originally, people from Goldman Sachs asked me to come. Leave me alone." "It's okay, Morgan's dinner starts at 7 o'clock, we need to go early, there is a small party, and then the daughter of the big man will be introduced to you." Jennifer glanced at the time and said, "We are 3 o'clock. Just go." "Okay. Then I'll change clothes first." Lu Feng stood up and said. Jennifer looked at this and said, "It's not polite to leave me alone in the hotel's parlor." "Then I'll find someone to accompany you." "No, I'll go to your room." Jennifer stood up and said. "This isn't appropriate." Lu Feng pretended to be reserved. Jennifer was a little surprised. She really didn't expect a man to say such a thing to her. She was stunned and said, "This is the country of the United States, don't think too much about it, it's just an ordinary friend." "Okay, it's good to be open." Lu Feng stood up with a smile and took her to his room. In the room, Lu Feng changed his clothes, and Jennifer praised her good figure. Jennifer had already thought about what would happen, but things didn't go as smoothly as she imagined. Lu Feng's mind seemed to have only dinner tonight. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the two cars drove towards the manor of the banquet. Inside the car, Lu Feng looked at Jennifer next to him and asked, "The beautiful woman we are going to meet today, she is the daughter of a big man, why do you want to listen to Kelly?" "Silk. The big man also needs some things, such as some news. No one here wants to offend three people. The first is the military, the second is the tax bureau, and the third is them," Jennifer explained. "Under normal circumstances, taxation is a powerful existence. No matter what kind of person you are, as long as you don't pay taxes, I can't save you. In many cases, they can do things that Kellys can't do. Some of the big guys don't have clean butts, so it's normal to please these units." The car stopped at the entrance of the manor, the door opened, and he rushed in directly. This is a relatively old manor with a strong literary and artistic atmosphere. When he got out of the car, Jennifer took Lu Feng upstairs directly. On the third floor, the interior decoration is quite simple and has a European feel of the last century. There are refreshments on a large solid wood table, and 7 or 8 men and women gathered together to chat. Among them was the president of Merrill Lynch that day, Chris. Jennifer took Lu Feng into a room, and there were several white girls sitting in it. One of them was handsome, and there was a bit of extravagance in her gestures. It could be seen that Jean had this kind of temperament since childhood. "Ivanka," Jennifer walked in and praised her, "prettier than yesterday." "You are also very beautiful today," Ivanka said with a smile. "Let me introduce you, this is the chairman of Jiafeng Group, Mr. Lu Feng," Jennifer introduced. "Hello," Ivanka stretched out her hand. Shaking hands, the two sides sat down and chatted. Ivanka didn't ask much about Lu Feng, she just helped protect this person at today's dinner. As for what happened between Kelly's gang and him, she didn't want to know, nor was interested in knowing it. She knew very well that knowing too much was not necessarily good. At 4 o'clock, Ivanka was going to change her dinner outfit, and Lu Feng and Jennifer stood up and walked out. "Don't think they are big people, it's hard to talk, sometimes it's the opposite." Jennifer asked, "Are you hungry? There is afternoon tea over there." "I'm okay." When Lu Feng entered the room, Wang Yu and he and the three were waiting outside. They were almost done eating and drinking. Lu Feng walked over to get coffee. Chris chatted happily with a few women, talking about Lu Feng's last dinner, and said, "I tell you, that guy will come tonight, don't you know, he's funny like a monkey. Ha 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 ha, isn't it? It looks like there's a lot of fun tonight. It's better than a dull dinner party, I'm looking forward to it anyway." Who isn't? Chris glanced back casually with a smile on his face, and suddenly saw that Lu Feng was standing not far away drinking coffee, and said in surprise, "My God, he came earlier, look, it's him." 7 or 8 people turned their heads and stared at Lu Feng in unison, with a look of anticipation on their faces, as if a farce was about to be staged. "Hi. He's drinking coffee, do you think he's ever had coffee?" a middle-aged woman asked. "Although he says he is rich, I don't think coffee is available in his country." "You'll know if you ask." Chris walked over to Lu Feng and asked, "Boy, do you remember me?" His face was full of jokes, and the feeling of contempt made people want to slap him in the face. Lu Feng's displeasure was directly displayed on his face, and he said, "Of course I remember, President of Merrill Lynch Investments, Chris. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 865. "Do you still remember me, come so early today?" Chris said to Lu Feng like a fool. "Have you seen the beauties over there? They are all noble ladies of the upper class. We were chatting just now. In your country, is there anything about coffee drinking?" "Yeah, is it delicious?" a woman came over and asked. "You should come to the US often and have a coffee or something." Lu Feng also felt amused when he saw the serious suggestions on their faces. However, after thinking about it, more than 20 years later, people on the overseas internet still asked us if we had electricity or a car, which was relieved. "You can come early today, thank me, I tell you, the greatest tolerance of the United States is to allow everyone who comes here to achieve their own American dream. I think you can continue the state that day." Chris Shui with Lu Feng's appearance, he pressed his throat and said, "There are many women behind me. I'm not happy, it's just that my girlfriends are not happy." Ha 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 ha. A few young women laughed wildly, and the 2 men behind them stared at Lu Feng and couldn't help laughing. They seemed to have found a funny monkey and surrounded him. Lu Feng looked at a few people with a gloomy expression, put the coffee on the table, and said coldly to everyone, "Is it funny? Where is it funny? Of course there is coffee in our country. I don't look like what you just learned. I don't have mine. Handsome and bohemian, but learns like a white-skinned pig." The group of people's laughter stopped abruptly, like a quack goose strangling its neck. The smile and anger on their faces merged, and the people who reacted were very angry. They couldn't believe that Lu Feng was such a the monkey dared to say those 3 words. "What did you say? You don't want to live anymore, do you?" Chris instantly dropped all his disguises, grabbed Lu Feng's collar with his hands, and glared at him, as if he was about to start in the next second. Playing with a monkey and being scolded by the monkey is unacceptable. "What did you just say? Believe it or not, you will never be able to set foot on the door of any banquet. This is absolutely the worst thing I've ever heard. I think such a person is hopeless and should be shot. Yes. Shot. Don't stop me, I'm going to beat him, no one can do it today." A group of people gathered around and saw that they were about to make a move. Lu Feng ignored these people. They took pleasure in making fun of others, but they were counterattacked by others, making it seem like they had stepped on their tails. "Hit me? Try to touch me? Believe it or not, don't even think about hanging out on Wall Street," Lu Feng shouted at the crowd, "dare to touch a single hair of me, so that you can't eat and walk around. Believe it or not." When Wang Yuanhe and the 3 saw the conflict here, They hurried over to help the field, but they also stood beside Lu Feng and did not dare to make other big moves. Chris was going crazy. He never dreamed that Lu Feng would have the confidence to be so arrogant. Shouldn't he make good use of his status as a funny clown to please these people? Can't eat and walk around? Good. I'm going to see who can protect you today. As soon as Chris finished speaking, a few people behind him were ready to start. Seeing that they were really going to beat people, Lu Feng shouted, "Baby, someone is going to beat me, hurry up." Ivanka changed her clothes and went back to the room to chat. The door was not closed. She had already noticed that Lu Feng didn't seem to be dealing with Chris and the others outside, but she never dreamed that it would develop to the point of a fight. She took on this job, thinking at the time that it would be better to take care of Lu Feng a little more at the dinner party, but she didn't expect that it would be so commotion before the dinner party started. Jennifer stood behind Lu Feng and looked at Chris and the others looking angry. Things had gotten out of control. She was just a lineman. She turned her head and looked at Ivanka in the room. Now she just wanted her work to go smoothly. As for whether Ivanka is in a dilemma, Jennifer can't control it. Ivanka was extremely unhappy, knowing that she was such a high-quality product. She would not agree to kill her. At this point, she had to stand up and walk out. He said, "What are you doing?" Her voice was not loud, even a little gentle, but everyone's eyes were instantly focused on her. Chris glanced at Lu Feng and then at Ivanka. All that was left in his mind was a sentence repeats like crazy. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. This person. Shut up. You have no right to speak. This Mr. Lu is today's distinguished guest. What are you talking about now? Ivanka frowned and said dissatisfiedly, "Apologize to Mr. Lu." Me? Chris felt that his worldview exploded in an instant, and he needed to apologize to him. What is your identity? The president of Merrill Lynch Investments, an absolute top executive on Wall Street, with such a distinguished status, apologize to him? Yes, it's you. Any questions? Ivanka stared at him and asked. It was he who just started saying. I don't want to hear the reason. I apologize, Ivanka said to him. You want to disobey me? The next monetary easing bill is about to be voted on. Can Merrill Lynch be one of them? What do you think? When Chris heard this, let alone being scolded by Lu Feng, even if his daughter-in-law was ruined, he had to endure it. He loosened Lu Feng's collar, took a deep breath, and bowed slightly with a smile on his face. I'm really sorry, Mr. Lu, for making you feel unhappy. Seeing him change his face so quickly, Lu Feng was also secretly stunned. These people are really bullying the soft and afraid of the tough. Lu Feng raised his brows and said, it doesn't seem to be very sincere. I have seen Fuzhang people bowing, and they are all 90 degrees. Even bowing first, then kneeling, and then throwing all five to the ground. Ivanka was a little unhappy when she heard Lu Feng's words, and said, okay, let's take a step back, don't do anything else. After Ivanka finished speaking, she entered the room. The expressions of the others were very exciting. There was a bit of shock in their eyes. Lu Feng actually had a really powerful girlfriend. Mr. Lu is a talented person. If he is stationed in Wall Street, he will definitely do a lot, a lady just said with a smile. At such an age, he has such achievements, and the future is limitless. Yes, I was just kidding with you. In fact, I saw it from the beginning. By the way, there will be a Victoria's Secret model on display next week. Why not join us? There will be a concert by a pianist in a few days. Would you like to join us? I have VIP tickets here. Didn't you get caught? Lu Feng looked at these familiar faces and really wanted to laugh. What was the difference between these so-called noble ladies and the relatives when he first got rich? Human nature is like this, it has nothing to do with money status. When Lu Feng saw that they started to compliment him, then don't blame him for starting to blow. he found a place to sit down, hooked his finger at Jennifer, let her sit next to him, then put his arms around him, facing the side. The noble lady instructed, "Bring me a cup of coffee, add sugar, thank you. I'm actually very good at talking to outsiders, don't look at her as my girlfriend, but I'm not used to her, this is my girlfriend too. I told you about it that day, and you still don't believe it?" "Believe? Now that I believe it, it's because of our short-sightedness." A middle-aged man next to him sat down and looked at Lu Feng and said, "If there is anything I'm sorry for, please bear with me." "Yes, don't care, everyone is very talkative," Chris said aside. "I also want to have a peaceful relationship with you. I don't want to talk about my girlfriends all over the world. The result? I can't communicate with you. I tell my story. You can see it as a joke, and continue to laugh now," Lu Feng said to everyone. They couldn't laugh anymore, they couldn't even figure it out. What did Ivanka like about this man? "If you need anything in the future, you can communicate more. This is my business card." Chris put the business card in front of Lu Feng with both hands sincerely. "I still like the way you looked just now, that kind of superior attitude." Lu Feng took the business card, took a sip of coffee and said, "To be honest, I don't want to use the relationship between my girlfriends, after all I'm a man too, and I have dignity." "Especially understandable, you are a man among men." Lu Feng was sitting there drinking coffee and talking to these people about the stories of himself and his girlfriends. It was not without basis. He added a bit of his own fabrication on the basis of some powerful women he knew. The dinner party was about to start, and people were coming outside. Lu Feng stood up and glanced outside, and saw a familiar figure with meticulously combed hair and dressed in a tuxedo, which was very traditional. "I haven't seen each other for several years, but Jiao Anfan is still so handsome." "It's all together tonight," Lu Feng muttered. "Let's get ready, Mr. Lu, do you want to be together?" Chris invited. "No, you are busy with your own business." "I'll take a look at my dear, I'm afraid she will be angry," Lu Feng said to everyone. After everyone left, they wanted to spread the news as soon as possible. Behind every large dinner party, there are complex interpersonal interactions, and changes in everyone's relationship are very important. "Will Kelly come tonight?" Lu Feng asked Jennifer. "Will come." "That's good." Lu Feng loosened his arms around Jennifer's waist and said, "Do you mind if I do this?" Jennifer looked at Lu Feng with spring-like brows, smiled and said, "I don't mind that much, I like your type of boy very much, so I don't have much dislike, even if the relationship has improved by leaps and bounds, it's not unacceptable." "Really?" Lu Feng said with a bit of surprise in his voice. "The dinner is about to start. Ivanka will interact with you a few times tonight." "She agreed to it," Jennifer ordered. In order to cultivate Lu Feng, Kelly has really invested a lot of money. As long as Ivanka does it, she can get the support of Kelly's unit. Here, support is important. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 866. As night falls, the life of the rich has just begun. The people at the dinner venue are dressed in fashionable clothes, either rich or expensive, and a necklace on a woman's neck may be worth a fortune. Lu Feng went downstairs and looked at the scene of intertwined figures in front of him. He greeted a waiter and brought a glass of champagne. Jennifer stood by and looked around, searching for Kelly. Wang Yu and he and the three were a little unsuitable for this kind of situation, and stood beside Lu Feng in a daze. "What are you doing standing here with me?" Lu Feng said to the three of them, "Eat whatever you want. Anyway, we didn't pay for it." "We dare not," Njia said timidly. "These bastards, there are so many people, they all know each other? Who knows who you are?" With a glass of wine in the crowd, Lu Feng said to them, "Go, three international rich people." Wang Yu and he dared to speak to the two of them, and walked in towards the crowd. Seeing Jennifer, Kelly walked over here. She was wearing a black off-the-shoulder evening dress tonight. She looked a bit heroic. She came over and looked at Lu Feng, and said, "You dressed very well tonight." "You are also very beautiful," Lu Feng praised and said to Kelly, "I have to say, Jennifer is a very good helper." "Really? It seems that you two get along very happily." Kelly held up the wine glass in her hand, touched Lu Feng slightly, and continued, "Mr. Lu, we can do everything we need to do, and I hope you go back as soon as possible. I believe you have more room for development in China. As long as you have a happy cooperation, we can provide you with more convenience. Don't worry, the financing here is almost done. I'll go back to China immediately." Lu Feng took a sip of wine and said, "Mr. Lu, I don't know if your company has contact with functional units in some countries in China," Kelly asked very directly. "Of course there is, and there is cooperation, such as some research institutes and state-owned enterprises. I used some means to connect. At the end of last year, the enterprise won the National Outstanding Private Enterprise," Lu Feng proudly said. When Kelly's heard this, she couldn't say what she felt at ease. An identity like Lu Feng was an excellent candidate for them. Not only could they get in touch with many different people, but they were also not easily suspected. "Then I'll go there first, you can do whatever you want." Kelly raised her glass to Lu Feng and walked to the side. "Okay. Chris has a wide network of contacts, and there is an endless stream of people who come to say hello." Jenny strode over and said to Chris, "Meet again, Chris, there is a big surprise tonight, absolutely fun." "Ha ha ha ha, isn't it? You've always been like this, you like to do things." Chris introduced a few people next to Jenny. When Su Yorong was leaving, she called Lu Feng's room, but no one answered. She asked the front desk of the hotel to find out that she was going out in the afternoon. Tonight, Su Yorong wore a long dress and looked extraordinarily elegant. The smoky makeup on her face was also very delicate. She entered the venue and greeted a few people with a glass of champagne, with a translator standing next to her. Xiao Anfan has been paying attention to his surroundings. Tonight is Morgan's dinner party. Not only celebrities, but also many high-level relatives are invited. These relatives are his key contacts. After all, if you want to hang out on Wall Street, how can you continue to hang around if you don't touch the white road? Morgan Global CEO Pete appeared at the scene, an old white man in his 60s with slightly sparse hair, chatting with Jenny and Chris. There were a lot of people around, and they were very smiling. In an instant, this place became the focus of the audience, and everyone looked over here. "Today's dinner is absolutely great, Pete. Did I call you to ask the person you invited to come? He definitely has the potential to be a clown actor," Jenny said with a bright face, looking around. "You mean Mr. Lu?" Chris looked back at Lu Feng's location and said, "He will be here in the afternoon. Over there." "Hi. Mr. Soft Fan," Jenny shouted towards Lu Feng, "come here soon. This guy, if it wasn't for me, why would he be here? If tonight is the same as that day, I think it should be given to me." He tipped. Everyone turned their heads and looked in the direction of Lu Feng. All of them turned to their sides and gave way in an instant. Lu Feng was standing at the end of the opened passage with a glass of champagne. "Wow, you really are here, come here," Jenny beckoned to Lu Feng. Seeing him like this, Lu Feng sneered and walked over in front of everyone's attention. Some of the people present even looked at him with a bit of jealousy, but he was just a clown, why should he stand with several bigwigs? "You should thank me. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here today." At Meryl's dinner party the day before yesterday, he stood up at the last moment and made everyone very happy. Jenny said to Lu Feng, "Today there are more people. More, give you a space to perform." Pete glanced at Lu Feng with a playful expression, and said, "Jenny's age still likes to make noise." Chris found that Lu Feng's face was not very happy. Jenny seemed to have to play with him, and hurriedly said, since Mr. Lu was invited, he should be a guest. Don't do other things. I asked him to come here to perform. Besides, he's just a nouveau riche. Jenny patted Lu Feng's shoulder with his hand and instructed, the other day you talked about eating soft rice, do it again, as long as if your girlfriend is unhappy, the Third World War will have to start, and I like the way you blow without thinking. Pete was already laughing by the side, and everyone around him laughed constantly. Obviously this was very interesting. Through the crowd, Su Yorong saw Lu Feng standing in the middle, chatting with a few big bosses. After listening to the translator next to them talking about what they were talking about, Su Yorong's face was not very good looking. It was obviously a shame to be pulled over. Can you call him here? Su Yorong didn't like Lu Feng's behavior very much. He always felt that this was not only a loss of his people, but also a loss of his own. The translator gave her a somewhat embarrassed look. The characters in the middle were not something that ordinary people could talk to. Thank you very much for Jenny's invitation, I don't need to say anything else. Toast. Lu Feng looked at them coldly, raised the champagne glass in his hand, touched the three of them, and took a sip. Jenny took his wine glass back a little, frowned secretly. He didn't look down on Lu Feng from the bottom of his heart, he was just being a monkey, calling him to play, and being happy. This person actually wants to be on an equal footing with himself? I called you here to recreate the scene of that day, not for you to drink. Jenny looked bad, stared at Lu Feng and shouted, you need to know who you are. Seeing that Jenny was angry, Pete stood aside and watched with a look on his face. Jenny, that's enough, Mr. Lu. Chris's words were interrupted by Jenny, you call him Mr. Lu? Just him. Chris, you have to pay attention to your identity, what happened to you today? I just wanted to tell you that you have to respect everyone, Chris said. Ha 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 ha, Jenny laughed and asked Lu Feng, do you need it? I think you need money more now, right? Lu Feng looked at Jenny's face and said, you are the investment president of Bear Stearns. After all, you only work for the board of directors, and my GFN group was founded by me. Since I want to talk about identity, your status is much higher than yours. The audience burst into laughter. Lu Feng's identity is really a joke in the world. Your GFN group is very powerful, but unfortunately I haven't heard of it, but I think it's your girlfriends who are very powerful. Since that day, I have been curious about who it is. Jenny continued to tease. Okay, Jenny, don't mention it again, Chris persuaded. What are you doing? Jenny was a little dissatisfied. He couldn't figure it out. It was just a nouveau riche from the East. Chris took the wrong medicine today, and kept reminding himself not to offend this person. You can talk about your big company, we haven't seen such a powerful person before, let's open our eyes. A black man in the crowd roared. The atmosphere at the scene was pushed to a climax, with laughter one after another, as if watching a talk show. When Lu Feng came over, Xiao Anfan had already noticed that when Lu Feng was teased by several bigwigs, he knew his chance was coming. Before Lu Feng could speak, Xiao Anfan stepped forward and said, who was I at that time? It turned out to be the notorious President Lu. I know this person, what's wrong? I can't get along in the country, so I'm going to the United States. Xiao Anfan walked out and said to the three of Jenny, I'm Henry Xiao, Executive Vice President of Liberty Insurance. I know this person. The GFN group in his mouth is just a small TV manufacturer in Huaxia. He has a lot of powerful girlfriends, it's even more nonsense, he can't even keep his own wife and divorced. This remark directly exposed Lu Feng's bottom line, and the scene was booed, as if he was listening to a big gossip. After Jiao Anfan finished speaking, he stared at Lu Feng very provocatively, as if to say that in 30 years of Hedong and 30 years of Hexi, you will also have today. I think we should respect everyone. Chris didn't want to annoy Lu Feng. He stood up and said, although I haven't known Mr. Lu for a long time, I think Mr. Lu is very sincere. He is my very good friend. I don't agree with this kind of crowd watching to pick out some of his history. As soon as these words came out, not only Jenny and Pete, but everyone in the audience was stunned, and they didn't understand why Chris wanted to speak for such a person. Did you make a mistake? Do you know what you're talking about? Do you know who you are? Jenny stared at Chris in surprise and asked. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 867. As soon as Jenny said this, many people at the scene turned to Chris. A Wall Street elite like Chris should stand with them. These people don't understand why they want to speak for a clown like Lu Feng. Seeing that everyone was unhappy, Chris knew that he had committed public anger, so he simply didn't say anything more. Anyway, he was making fun of Lu Feng for a while, and it had nothing to do with him. Mr. Chris, I know you have sympathy, but for such a person who is cheating everywhere, I think it should be punished. Xiao Anfan stood up to help Chris out of the siege. On Lu Feng's body, he looked very disdainful. I'm here to introduce this person to everyone, the chairman of Jiafeng Group, a brazen, abducted person who has gotten to where he is today by cheating and deceitful means. This person has dirty methods and no shame. It's full of lies, everyone, don't be deceived by him. And I heard that this person led his company to Wall Street and wanted to raise money, but he just wanted to find another big head. As for his so-called girlfriends, it is a joke within a joke. After listening to Xiao Anfan's remarks, the scene was booed, and the old story was revealed in public. This embarrassment was really big. Have you finished your introduction? Then let me introduce you to this one too. Lu Feng pointed at Xiao Anfan and said, a few years ago, this handsome young man returned from Wall Street with $30 million to create a TV brand. The two of us faced each other. This handsome boss, in less than a year, was beaten and fled. When this matter was revealed, Xiao Anfan couldn't hold back for a moment, staring at Lu Feng as if he was going to eat people. Our company has a short time, but its growth rate is very fast. Now we are expanding globally. I believe that it will not take long for a company that emerges from China to become influential on a global scale. Lu Feng said to everyone, people, it is said that Wall Street is a street that is good at producing miracles, but in Jiafeng, miracles are constantly being staged. Xiao Anfan was deprived of the right to speak, and the scene became a venue for Lu Feng to promote his company. Originally, he was called to make fun of the boring child. Is this your show? Jenny lowered his face and shouted, don't you know who you are? Since you don't know, then please go out. Where's the security guard? Is this the scene of the financing roadshow? A few black security guards walked towards the side. Xiao Anfan took a sip from the wine glass in his hand. This was probably his only victory against Lu Feng. Get out. That is, still want to be on an equal footing with us? It's just wishful thinking. I don't even look at my identity. Being invited today is a chance for you. There were a few sarcasms from the crowd from time to time. It seemed that they needed to show humility in the face of higher-level people like Jenny, so it was only when they faced Lu Feng that they spoke ill of each other. There has been a commotion here for more than 10 minutes, and the whole audience is looking over here. The security guards came over and shouted, sir, please cooperate, or don't blame me for being rude. I'm sorry, I can't cooperate. Lu Feng looked at Jenny and said, they don't deserve to let me go. My girlfriend let me go, so I can go. The security doesn't care about his girlfriend or not. He stepped forward and prepared to do it. A few minutes ago, Jennifer saw that the situation was getting out of control, so she ran over to find Ivanka. After all, the cooperation she said was unnecessary. What are you doing? With a loud shout, the crowd dispersed into a gap, and Ivanka stood there with an extremely ugly face, not because Lu Feng was bullied, but because tonight's job was not easy to do. Originally, she thought that it would be okay to be polite to a stranger, but she didn't expect it to be endless. Several security personnel were about to grab Lu Feng's hand, and when they saw Ivanka's face darkened, they couldn't figure out who the woman was, but they didn't dare to do anything else. Jenny was stunned when he saw Ivanka coming, and seemed to feel something. He opened his mouth and said tentatively, "This person has nothing to do with you, right? He just came here from Huaxia." "It has something to do with me, so what?" "It doesn't matter, so what? Do you think it's appropriate to treat a guest from afar?" Ivanka came over and glanced at Pete and Jenny's faces, asked, "I don't think this is the way to entertain guests, right?" Jenny was stunned. He couldn't imagine that these words could come out of Ivanka's mouth, and it was for a Lu Feng? Although there is a gap between the identities of the two parties, they will not speak of a certain person so directly. Now, it can only be said that Lu Feng is very important to her. Then there is only one unacceptable reality left. Lu Feng is right, he has many powerful girlfriends. Jenny's face froze. He didn't want to affect his relationship with Ivanka's father because of this. He said, "What we did is a little inappropriate. Thank you, Ivanka, for pointing it out. It must be changed." Okay, everyone can eat what they should." Pete stood up and wanted to make a round, and said to the security guard beside Lu Feng, "You also go back to your posts, this is how it is." Seeing this situation, everyone around them was already thinking secretly, what is the origin of Lu Feng, what is the origin of this woman named Ivanka? This seems to be a level they can't spy on. Xiao Unfan's expression was already stiff. He didn't know Ivanka, but the attitude of several bigwigs at the scene made him feel that this young and beautiful woman was by no means simple. Ivanka was a little unhappy. She got angry with Chris in the afternoon, and now she is doing this kind of thing again, and she is simply ignored. "What do you mean by this? He was surrounded by you and ridiculed him for so long." "Just like this, even if it's over," Ivanka said coldly. As soon as this remark came out, Pete was shocked and looked at Ivanka. What else did she want to do? "Do you want to apologize to him? This is simply a fantasy. What is your identity? Then what do you want?" As the global president of Morgan, Pitt is still very confident in the face of a little girl. When he was on Wall Street, she was not born. The scene was full of gunpowder, and Jenny didn't want to have a conflict with Ivanka, so he said, "It's almost enough." "Not so good. Easy money bill in a few days." "I'm sorry." Before Ivanka could finish speaking, Pete walked up to Lu Feng, opened his arms to hug Lu Feng, and said sincerely, "Please forgive my recklessness and strength, and I sincerely apologize to you here. Mr. Lu, I'm sorry, but you can talk to us about financing." With a smile on his face, Jenny looked at Lu Feng like a brother. Everyone present could never have imagined that things would end in this way, and they glanced at each other, their hearts were already full of shock. Some people are speculating about Lu Feng's identity. He can make characters like Jenny and Pete bow their heads. It can be said that he has the qualifications to walk sideways on Wall Street. Xiao Unfan's eyes were full of disbelief, and he shook his head slightly. He couldn't accept this reality. He was hammered to the ground by Lu Feng in China. Now that he came to the United States, he was not as good as him. Even the financial tycoon he needs to look up to has to apologize in front of him. Xiao Unfan had always thought that he had left Lu Feng more than a dozen streets away. Regardless of his appearance, background, education, and knowledge, he was not comparable to Lu Feng in any aspect, but he was never inferior to him. "Let's play. I hope everyone has a good night here." Pete disperses the crowd with his stiff hair. Tonight, Lu Feng's name is destined to be the brightest, and it will become the focus of everyone's discussion. The crowd gradually dispersed. Su Yorong was still standing there, staring straight at Ivanka. Unexpectedly, even Su Yorong couldn't believe it. Chris walked over to Lu Feng and said, "You are raising funds? Can you come to our company and try it out? Recently, Our company has some idle money and is going to invest it in some cost-effective companies. Really? That's great. Is it suitable for tomorrow? Lu Feng asked him. Of course, anytime. Chris touched the glass and whispered, when did you and Ivanka meet? Don't ask if you shouldn't. Lu Feng gave him a warning, lit a cigarette and said, I have to go. Okay. Remember to call me, or just go find me on Wall Street. Jenny wanted to come over and find out what happened to Lu Feng, but he was so playful just now that he couldn't hold back his face. He looked at Chris, his good friend, and asked in a low voice, what's this guy from? Don't mess with it, Chris gave him 3 words. Xiao Anfan stood there blank-eyed, and Lu Feng smashed his last trace of arrogance. The things he cared about the most were worthless in front of Lu Feng. Sitting on the chair, Xiao Anfan gave a wry smile, drank the wine in his hand, sat there for a while, stood up silently and left the dinner party, disappeared into the sea of people, and drowned in the dark night. According to the agreement, Lu Feng and Ivanka had 2 contacts, 1 dance and 1 meal. The contact lasted for an hour, and everyone at the scene saw it. Kelly stood in the distance and watched Lu Feng and Ivanka standing together, and whispered to Jennifer beside her, is the room ready? It's all right. Do you want to drink some wine later? Jennifer took a sip from the glass. I don't think it's necessary. The way he looks at you, this person is simply a nouveau riche, and he can't hide it from a slightly beautiful woman. Kelly drank champagne and said, such a person is easy to control. Just sleep, I shouldn't be able to control him. If the videotape is mailed to the relevant department in Huaxia, and the identity of your lineman is revealed at that time, do you think he is afraid? Kelly stared at it with a bit of playfulness. A new plaything has appeared, hey. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 868. From the joke at the beginning to the current star holding the moon, it took less than an hour. I have to say that this place is developed. When it comes to changing faces, these rich people in the United States are better at it. 1 second they can look down on you, trample you under their feet and want to spit a few mouthfuls. The next second, they will be useful to you. They can shamelessly kneel on the ground and beg you. Maybe for ordinary people, the life of the rich should be decent, not to mention what Lu Feng came into contact with. In an interview in The Last Life, Jet Li said about his first experience in Hollywood. No, when you can sell money, they will take the money and kneel on the ground begging you. When you are an ordinary person with all the moral standards of ordinary people, then you are nobler than 99% of the rich people in this world. There was an endless stream of people around Lu Feng, and everyone was polite, as if he was the brightest star of the dinner. Lu Feng also accumulated a lot of business cards in his hand, and accompanied Ivanka to drink a glass of wine. Ivanka's task tonight has been completed, and whispered to Lu Feng, I'll go up first, you'd better live in peace. A little. Okay, goodbye, Lu Feng replied to her, turned his head and left. Lu Feng walked aside with the wine glass in his hand, glanced at the crowd, locked on Su Yorong, walked over, and said, how was your evening? Are there any handsome and rich ones? Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng with interest and said, everyone's attention is on you, who cares about an old woman like me who can't speak English? You have a way, why don't you tell me? Now, I'll go to the hotel to find you. I just want to tell you that without you, I can do it, Lu Feng said to her. Ha, Su Yorong laughed, and seemed a little dissatisfied, and said, then you're looking for me to give me a chance? Don't tell me, you sleep with me because you like me, half assistance. Then you like me? You don't like me, you just want to possess it. Lu Feng took a sip of wine and said, just tonight, the road behind me is very smooth. You mean that I'm useless? I'm just curious, how did you get on with others? Su-yorong looked at the position upstairs and said, can you talk about it? I can't say, I'm afraid you'll find someone else to grind tofu, Lu Feng said with a smile. Su-yorong raised her brows and snorted coldly, I have enough money to spend, so I can't be degraded. Kelly had been standing not far away to look at Lu Feng, and said to Jennifer beside her, okay, let's go. Jennifer walked over, looked at Lu Feng and said affectionately, congratulations. Let's go over there for a drink and celebrate. It's mainly up to you to be successful tonight. Lu Feng put his hand on Jennifer's shoulder and introduced, this is the CEO of United Capital, so let's stay here. There was an vacant table and chairs next to it, a few people sat down, Jennifer was looking at Su-yorong, and Su-yorong was also staring at the little girl. Su-yorong always looked at women fairly accurately. She always felt that this little girl gave people a feeling of being unfamiliar with the world, but sometimes she would show a state that was not in line with her age. The waiter served some food and brought 2 bottles of red wine. Lu Feng lifted the glass and asked Jennifer, where's the Kelly? I have to thank her. She's busy, so let's drink it. Jennifer held up her red wine glass and said, cheers. Most of them were Lu Feng chatting with Jennifer. Su-yorong didn't understand English, and the translator standing beside him couldn't put in a few words. From time to time, people came over to say hello, and before you knew it, the 2 bottles of red wine had bottomed out. Jennifer ordered 2 more bottles. Su-yorong couldn't speak, sitting there seemed to be excluded from this chat. She silently stared at Jennifer. She already had the answer in her heart, this beautiful woman is not simple. She glanced at Lu Feng again. She didn't know what he had exchanged for today's chance, but she knew that it was definitely not what happened to this Jennifer tonight. It can be laid flat. I'm going to the bathroom. Lu Feng stood up and said. After Lu Feng left, Jennifer stared at Su-yorong and said, would you like to go shopping elsewhere? I like it here, Su-yorong said provocatively with a smile. Jennifer said nothing more and said to the waiter, I'll help Mr. Lu pour some bars. Taking the red wine bottle from the waiter, Jennifer blocked the mouth of the bottle with one hand, as if trying to hide something. Su-yorong stared at the red wine glass to see how she dispensed the medicine. After Jennifer finished pouring it, when she retrieved it, she held a white object smaller than a capsule in her fingers, and a drop of liquid dripped onto the pastry on Lu Feng's plate. Su-yorong looked at the other party and thought to herself, it's really rough, a little girl is too tender after all, but she doesn't know that she is a trained little girl. When Lu Feng came back, he saw the 2 of them sitting facing each other. The atmosphere was rather awkward. The banquet had come to an end, and groups of 3 or 5 gathered in a pile, basically around some powerful people. Lu Feng sat down and said, after we finish drinking this cup, let's chat with other people and make some more friends. Okay, Jennifer raised her eyebrows at Su-yorong, cheers. What kind of temper does Su-yorong have? How can she endure such a provocation from a girl's film? And said, change the glasses, waiter, change all 3 of our wine glasses, and open a bottle of red wine. Isn't this not finished? Lu Feng wondered. It's not spending your money, why are you distressed? Su-yorong stared at Lu Feng and said solemnly. Lu Feng felt that something was wrong in an instant. In addition to the origin of Jennifer, he also guessed that he was inseparable, and immediately asked the waiter to change the wine glasses and red wine. Jennifer didn't respond either. They exchanged red wine and glasses, and the 3 of them drank it all in one go. Just as Lu Feng was about to get up to chat with a few investment managers from Morgan and Merrill Lynch, Jennifer said, drinking so much wine, so much I have a bad stomach, so eat the cake. Lu Feng also felt that his stomach was churning, so he picked up the cakes on his plate and ate them. After a few words of courtesy, Lu Feng walked towards the crowd. Su-yorong walked over and said in a low voice, I almost said, who did you mix with? What's wrong? Is the wine wrong? It's very likely that I've given you medicine. Without me, you can't do anything. What about your 3 employees? Su Yorong asked. Lu Feng looked around. The place was too big and there were too many people. He couldn't find Wang Yuanhe and the 3 of them. He must have gone crazy. It's okay, let them go. Lu Feng looked at Morgan's people. Pete was just sitting there, surrounded by a group of people, who laughed from time to time. Lu Feng walked over, and everyone gave way in an instant. Pete couldn't say how optimistic he was about Jiafeng Electronics, and a group of people chatted about the Asian financial market. It was fine at the beginning. Lu Feng's thoughts were still online. After less than half an hour, he felt a little lack of concentration. He couldn't help but want to aim at the woman in the low-cut evening dress next to him. His hands and feet felt a little hot. A few minutes later, Lu Feng could clearly feel that his heart beat faster, and blood began to rush towards some peripheral nerves. I'm sorry, Lu Feng turned around and left. Lu Feng stepped out of the crowd and felt his heart beat faster. He could even hear his own heartbeat. His mind became more and more blurred. Give me a glass of juice, Lu Feng shouted at the waiter. After taking a few sips of the juice, it was still useless. Lu Feng felt it, and he seemed to be on the verge of saying that this place should not be too long. He looked around, wanted to find Su Yorong, and hurry up. What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Jennifer's voice came from behind. Then she stepped forward to support Lu Feng, and put her fingers on her waist. The two were close together, and Lu Feng stared at her with wide eyes. Did you drink too much? It's okay, I'll help you go back to the room, Jennifer said and helped Lu Feng to the room. The scent of perfume on her body didn't feel very powerful, but at this moment, Lu Feng was like a cat seeing catnip, and that scent made him nostalgic. He went upstairs in a daze. In a large and luxurious room, the lights were a bit ambiguous. When he entered the back room, Lu Feng was lying on the bed, his skin was red and the heat was unbearable. Jennifer climbed into the bed, looked at Lu Feng and said, "How do you feel about me?" Lu Feng looked at her, just panting heavily, and said, "Very good. Then we won't wash up, let's just come." After Jennifer finished speaking, she reached out and took off Lu Feng's suit jacket. The clothes were ripped off quickly, and Lu Feng felt that his mind was getting more and more confused, but in the deepest part, he was still a little sensible, and he definitely understood. If I were to do something here tonight, there would probably be more cameras in this room than there are cameras in a popular star's press conference. Don't move, Lu Feng shouted in a low voice. What's the matter? Jennifer said, her hand on the zipper of her pants. No. No. Why? Am I not good enough? Jennifer was also surprised. This drug was not Wei-Ge, but a synthetic drug that strongly stimulates blood, which not only stimulates the heart to accelerate blood flow, but also stimulates the secretion of hormones. Lu Feng knew that if he refused directly, he might be in trouble, and said in confusion, "Man. It has to be a man. I'll go first." Lifting his pants, he rushed out with his clothes. Jennifer was dumbfounded while sitting on the bed, and she didn't feel it for 2 days. Lu Feng put on his clothes and went downstairs. He knew he had to leave. He went downstairs and asked the waiter for a large glass of water, which he drank in one gulp. Su Yorong found out that Lu Feng was gone, and was looking around, and Wang Yuanhe and the 3 also helped to find it. "It's here," Njia shouted. Njia was wearing a shoulder-length evening dress tonight, and her bare white skin was extremely dazzling at the moment. Lu Feng stared straight at her. Njia was frightened by him, and hurriedly covered her hand with her hand. Sure enough, she had heard that Mr. Lu was lustful, and as expected, she stared at her. "What's wrong with you? Why are you hunched over?" Su Yorong came over and hurriedly asked. "Don't ask, let's go," Lu Feng gritted his teeth, his voice popping out of his throat. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 869. The group got into the car and galloped towards the hotel. In the back row, Lu Feng's face was red, and his whole body was panting. Su Yorong touched Lu Feng's face with his hand and frowned. This technique is too subtle, I don't know where it is for you. Take me to the hospital, Lu Feng struggled. No, in the martial arts novels I read, this kind of thing just needs to be done a few times, it's very simple. Su Yorong stretched out his arms to hug Lu Feng and said, it's not very convenient in the car, you can hold on. Lu Feng raised his head to look at her, and said angrily, it's time, why are you still thinking about it? It's definitely right, isn't it just some medicine? Su Yorong said indifferently, glanced at him, his pupils opened slightly, and said in surprise, what kind of medicine is this? The effect is so good, if you can get the formula, apply for a patent for global sales, and what about Wei Ji? Lu Feng didn't want to talk to her, so he touched the storage compartment of the car door. He couldn't find any water, so he said, bring me 2 bottles of water. What are you drinking water for? Drink more water, promote metabolism, and quickly expel the medicine, Lu Feng exclaimed. It's useless. Su Yorong took out a bottle of water and took 2 sips on his own. He opened the partition and said to the driver in the front row, go back to Mr. Lu's hotel, come closer. Okay. The car stopped at the entrance of the hotel. Lu Feng took off his suit and tied it around his waist. A group of people helped him down into the elevator and into the room. Su Yorong stood at the door and said to Njia, why, you guys have a good rest, today? It's tiring. Is Mr. Lu alright? Njia asked concerned. It's alright, I'll take care of it. Seeing that Njia wanted to say something, Wang Yuan he hurriedly said, let's go back to sleep. Su Yorong closed it, first dragged his high heels down, and said to the inside, go to the bed and lie down first. You'd better take me to the hospital. Okay, Lu Feng said while lying on the bed, we are both old and married, so why take advantage of the opportunity to fight cheaply? It doesn't cost money to go to the hospital, really, if you can save a little, you can save a little, isn't it just a little medicine? I'll fix it. Su Yorong took off her evening gown and asked, how are you feeling now? Do you know what a red-hot steel rod is? Su Yorong burst out laughing and walked towards the inner room. Jennifer couldn't understand why she lost her hand. The medicine in her hand was for the exclusive use of the line staff, and when ordinary people took it, they could only become slaves of desire. And the effect of the drug is long-lasting, not only the first wave, but when it feels like everything has faded, there will be a second wave. She also wanted to pull Lu Feng back, but as long as she did it, this video would not threaten Lu Feng, it was a video of forced sex, so it would be meaningless. Jennifer was a little annoyed and expected to be punished again. She stood up and straightened her clothes and walked out, but she was scolded by Kelly as expected. This information must be available. That's all they use to control people. They keep the evidence of both parties, and keep some video evidence. As long as Lu Feng does something for them once, they don't have to pay any money later. In the hands of this businessman, they not only did not pay for some things, but also forced Lu Feng to donate money to protect themselves, so Kelly was willing to help him with such a large amount of money at the beginning. Look for another chance. Kelly understood that Lu Feng had already guarded her, and Jennifer couldn't get it. It's not only Kelly who is worried, but also Elmi. It's been a week since she came here. Apart from being dragged to the dinner once by Lu Feng, the two don't have much interaction, and Elmi's father has never met. Now that Lu Feng was bitten to death, the two parties had to reach a cooperation on Ruxinlab as the president of the group. Huldix had quarreled with the board members on the phone this week. He didn't want to meet Lu Feng in his own capacity, so he could only let Elmi go, but Elmi was dragged to the dinner party and lost. This is the end of the matter. There is no way to do it, unless they are willing to give up that batch of products. If Nokia has money, this product will not be painful to them. The key is now Nokia's recovery period, not only to throw away products, but also to lose the Huaxia market. After arguing for a week, the board of directors compromised, but in the end, it was his CEO. In the corner of the hotel lounge, Dix looked at his daughter, took a cigar, and said, "This is the biggest step the board can make. What we want is to recover immediately." "Dad, what if he still doesn't give in?" Elmi looked worried at her father's vicissitudes. "Then I'll resign. This time the impact is too great. I'll go find him in a while and try to minimize the loss as much as possible." Elmi sighed, feeling rather complicated. It was almost 12 o'clock in the evening. There was a smell of hormones in the room. Lu Feng's complexion had returned to normal, and he reached out to embrace the people around him. "Don't touch me." Su Yorong's hair was messy, and the flushing on her face didn't go away. She seemed a little uncomfortable when she sat up, grinned and said, "What kind of bullshit medicine? Sold out. You're just thinking about selling medicine." "I feel much better, but my heartbeat is still fast." Lu Feng felt his own heartbeat and said, "Drink more water if your heart beats fast. If you can't do it, go to the hospital. I can't cure your disease. Without that, well, I wouldn't dare to take your job." Su Yorong spoke and stood up. "What are you doing?" Lu Feng wondered. "I'm going back. If something happens in the middle of the night, I can't stand it." Su Yorong seemed to really want to go back to rest. Lu Feng ignored her, sat up, lit a cigarette, and said, "The next thing is that I have contact with Morgan, Merrill Lynch, and Bear Stearns. You don't have much to do later. If you are busy, go back first." "What's the money?" Su Yorong asked after getting dressed. "As I said at the time, I'll give you a little of the money I raised here. Don't worry, there will be no shortage of you," Lu Feng affirmed. "Hit my personal account." Su Yorong went out the door, and before taking a few steps, she breathed in only cold air, and endured it to the elevator entrance. The strength of the medicine faded, and he was almost awake. Lu Feng got out of bed and drank a glass of water. Looking at the night scene outside, he pinched his cigarette in the ashtray. Opened a folder, found the phone number of the European team and called it. It took a long time for the other party to pick up, and Li Lin's voice came. "Which one?" "It's me, Lu Feng." "How's the recent progress?" Lu Feng asked directly. "Mr. Lu, there is still a stalemate. There is an overseas Chinese who is a senior executive at Schroders. They introduced us to us. They are very dissatisfied with our valuation. We have less contact these 2 days. We talked about it once before, and they meant that if we insist on this financing plan, then we don't need to talk about it later." Li Lin said worriedly, "The valuation they gave is too far from ours." "Okay, I understand, don't worry, this matter will turn around in the next 2 days," Lu Feng reassured. "They don't want to contact, so don't be too proactive, just go out and play for 2 days. "What?" Li Lin was a little dumbfounded when she heard this. Originally, she was ready to be scolded, but she didn't expect the boss to treat her so well, so she hurriedly said, "Thank you, Mr. Lu, we don't have the heart to play, we mainly focus on work. Communicate more so that the other party can understand us better." "No need, don't call them, you're not used to this problem, you guys just play with you know," Lu Feng ordered. Li Lin originally wanted to show that she was serious about her work, but Lu Feng asked her to play. She didn't know what President Lu meant for a while, so she could only agree first suspiciously. Lu Feng asked about some other things and hung up the phone. It should be almost noon in China now. Lu Feng is going to call Lu Cheng. Those associations, research institutes and so on here can't use the name of Jiafeng Electronics. Or else you will be retaliate later. Just as he was about to make a phone call, his heartbeat, which had calmed down, began to speed up. In less than 2 minutes, the scorching heat in his body struck again. The second wave of drug efficacy arrived on schedule. Lu Feng took a deep breath, put down the phone, found a bottle of water, and drank it. It's not good to go on like this. This medicine is probably specially made. The ghost knows if it will have any side effects on the body, so it's better to go to the hospital. Picking up the jacket from the ground, Lu Feng took 2 deep breaths and walked towards the door. He originally wanted to take someone with him, but once again he thought about such an embarrassing thing, he should go by himself. Going out the door, he walked towards the elevator entrance. As the elevator door opened, Lu Feng plunged into it without even looking, and suddenly the person inside pushed him out. "What are you doing?" Elmi was holding the folder in her hand, and these 2 days can be regarded as arresting people. "I have something urgent, do you have something to do with me?" "Let's talk tomorrow," Lu Feng said and prepared to enter the elevator. Tomorrow. Elmi can't wait for tomorrow, it's better to resume Nokia's sales now, blocking the elevator and saying, "Right now, go to your room to talk, didn't you say that you want to cooperate with Ruxin Lab? My dad is arguing with the director after almost half a month, this matter finally passed, I don't know what will happen tomorrow. I'm really in a hurry, I'm going to the hospital," Lu Feng said anxiously. Elmi felt that she was too aggrieved, and finally achieved his request. He was still making excuses here, and he wanted to make a fool of himself. Elmi would not allow him to go on like this. "Chang, you will go to the hospital after you read it." Lu Feng felt her hand, and the fire in his heart was stirred up in an instant, and there was no hint of resistance, so he pulled the 2 back to the room. As soon as Elmi entered the room, she saw the mess in the living room and some family planning supplies. She was stunned for a moment and said, "You really, forget it, look at it." Lu Feng took the folder and looked through it. Elmi was standing aside, with high heels, a short skirt, a suspender and a decorative denim top. "Call. Would you like to sit down?" Lu Feng said, holding up the water glass in front of him, and drank it. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website.